Jon Wedger. How are you, mate?
Really good.
You enjoying your water? Yeah, I can see you desperately get going with it.
Yeah, I will do at some point.
A lovely sponsor, Cure Water.
Oh, right,
it's
okay.
oxygenated water. It helps on the stairs.
Oh yeah,
it gives
you'll
you a
need
kick,
it here, wouldn't you?
We've spoken to you a few times. You're obviously a fountain of knowledge. I mean, you've just thrown a load of knowledge at us there, which was fantastic. But anyway, I wanted to ask you about some stuff, just about you specifically,
Right?
Because we don't really know anything about you. Now, you are the nation's favourite retired police officer. Everyone knows Jon. Everyone loves Jon. What are you like? What are you into? Like, what entertainment? Do you go to theatre? Do you watch films? Like what?
Yeah, I've got a really low attention span.
Right. Okay.
Right. So, and I can't watch nonsense. There has to be.
Oh, it has to grab you.
Yeah, there's got to be a hook. So, someone said the other day, we'd like to interview you about this new drama, Adolescence.
Oh, right, yeah, of course,
Right,
yeah.
So I went, and everyone's Adolescence raving about it. I watched it 10 minutes. I was so bored.
Really?
And I went to him, I can't do the interview. I said, it's the biggest load of rubbish I've ever seen.
The TV show?
Yeah, it's absolute. Yeah, it's this drama, isn't it, about a kid who's.
Have you seen it, Rebekka?
No, I haven't.
Have you heard of it?
No.
So it's this. What?
Well, the main reason they're all going on about it, it's got that actor Stephen Graham, you know, the Scouser, the Liverpudlian.
The dad.
Yeah, he's a dad, and of course he's now like, you know, our version of Morgan Freeman. He's on everything, isn't he?
Right, yeah. So it's about a kid that's killed somebody at school.
Yeah.
And it's a drama on what? ITV?
Yeah, no, it's Netflix.
Netflix.
But it's gone viral, and everyone's, you know,
Because it was all filmed in one sit. Like the whole episode was one. Like every room they go to, it's filmed
Yeah, I've
one.
seen the audition tape because everyone's like super pressed about the kid.
The kid,
and his
yeah.
performance
Right.
and
Yeah, it's a social commentary, really. But
I haven't seen it, but didn't get you.
No, I found it boring.
Because you're from the real world of.
Yeah, it was, you know, and I deal with a lot of young offenders
Yeah,
and stuff
right,
like
yeah.
that, and I couldn't see any
Oh,
correlation.
I see. Right, yeah.
And it was just, I don't know, a little bit wokey at times and whatnot. And I just thought, no, it's not for me. And I didn't see any realism in it at all. It was boring. The base level, Adolescence, in my opinion, is boring.
That is the problem. You've come from an extreme end of it. So that's like light entertainment for you.
Yeah, I mean, I love the 80s, right? And I love watching things like Minder, right? Because it's British culture.
Yeah.
I think Britain is the pub.
Yeah.
And I love things that have the pub. I love watching people smoke in the pub. I love men being men. You know, I just love how it used to be.
Yeah.
The rawness of it all. You know, there was opportunity, but it was funny as well. So when you watch things like Minder, they're just brilliant. There's a script within a script. There's a subtext. There's a story within a story. And there's these two worlds coming together, and it's funny.
Yeah.
And it's real working class humour, and I love it. So I like watching that. Cheers me up. A lot of BBC comedy makes me laugh. I like watching The Thin Blue Line.
Oh, right,
the Ben Elton one, just because
Rowan Atkinson,
the ineptitude of it all, and there's a sense of realism as well, because the all the furniture is very policey from that time. I mean, they've got that right, and I love comedy. I really do like a bit of comedy.
Because even though it's a comedy, there's a structure of this is what it's like when you actually go to work in a police.
I think when things are based, when there's a sense of realism about them, it's all about the algorithm. If the algorithm is right, it works.
Yeah.
When you alter the algorithm of something, it don't work.
Yeah.
Right. Only Fools and Horses. It was meant to be about three men from three generations of a family, all without women.
Yeah.
Right. So it was similar. I know two were brothers and one was a granddad.
Yeah.
But while there were no women in that thing, no one got married, it was incredibly funny.
Right.
And the moment the women come along, the algorithm broke.
Right, yeah.
You know, it's like changing, you know, the black cabs into a new version. It doesn't work. The algorithm's broken. It's finished.
Somebody's talking about films that came out in the 90s because they tried to monetize it. They tried to appeal to everyone. You have to have a little bit of comedy. You have to have... What they did is they took like gangster films and then from the book, but they'd interject a relationship into it, and it just broke the whole thing.
It broke, and that's what you see with
Only Fools and Horses. Have you seen Only Fools and Horses?
No, I haven't.
Okay, it's a British long-standing comedy. I hadn't noticed. I watched the making of it, and they said it's about these working class market traders, and every day he's just starting again with trying to earn money. And they said if you watch it, every episode they've got new furniture in the building.
Oh, okay.
In the room.
Right, no one
he said
knows.
because working class people, you were always selling. Somebody would come around your house. He said so one day the scene would be there'd be like a dining table in there.
Right.
Next is garden furniture in the room.
I got it.
Because you're always when you're working class, everyone's always buying and selling stuff. And I thought, oh God, see like how many next to that. Or the Thin Blue Line, you mentioning they got the furniture right. I thought,
it's
just,
they call it continuity.
Right.
The continuity is there, and it's just funny.
Yeah.
So stuff like that, I like because I'm very near to finishing my book now, and when I write it, in the background I have a drama or a comedy from the 80s on, because it would take me back there. It would take me back to when the times were really good in this country. It was a very happy time. It was very positive. There was money about. There was opportunity about. And now it's awful. It's negative. It's mixed. I'm not a fan of the woke stuff. I can't do with it. I see a very sinister, anti-Christian undertone with it all, and I can't be doing with it. And a lot of and the same with comedy. Comedy went from working class right wing ethics to middle class left wing sort of liberalisation. And when I watch comedies from like the 2000s, they're not funny. They're really not.
Well, it's painting by numbers. They're trying to just be light entertainment.
Just rubbish,
so because what it is a lot of it with films, a problem is that they're trying to make it appeal to every channel. Whereas before you just did something in England for the BBC, but now you've got to make films work for the Chinese market. You've got to make them work for this. You need the relationship in there. You need the funny bit in there because they have to make it mass marketing, which then ruined the fact of what it was.
Yeah, so with my boys, my oldest boy he's 37, and with his mates and the stuff they watch. And I don't get it. I don't like Jason Statham. He just always plays Jason Statham. And there's no realism. You sit there and think you're going to have a fast chase in a really smart car.
No one gets hurt. He beats
fight
everybody
20
up.
Men, you're going to get blown up, fight shot, and it's rubbish. It's immature. With no realism at all. I like true stories. I love a real good. I love a good crime as well.
I watched Serpico the other day, and I thought of you. The film. Have you seen the film Serpico?
No.
About the guy in America who's sort of a whistleblower. But John, John's hero. Then John met him, and he said,
Oh, really?
It's a film come out in America. It became a massive cult film. Serpico.
Who played it? Al Pacino.
Al Pacino played. It was one of Al Pacino's best roles, and he played this NYPD detective called Frank Serpico, who became a whistleblower. And
he couldn't be corrupted in a corrupt police system.
and he was a menace to everyone really because of his honesty and his integrity and everything else. So his colleagues shot him in the face.
Oh, lovely.
But he survived, and he went on to expose this huge labyrinth of corruption. And it became a massive film. It's really big. It came out late 70s, early 80s, but it's a very iconic American film. And I love that, again, the old New York 80s cop stuff, because New York was a gritty place in the 80s.
Filthy place,
Hill Street Blues, I know that was Chicago. But there was something, it was things like that drew me into policing, because it was so raw. And there's a documentary, I think called 7-5, it's on Netflix, and it's about the corruption in the 80s with the NYPD.
Oh, with Michael, the guy that got put away. The 7-5, it was the district, wasn't it? 7-5 district.
And it's brilliant.
Yeah.
And it's got old footage of how it used to be, and I'm thinking, what a place.
What year did you join the police force?
I joined 1994, but I did go out and I did a joint job with the NYPD, and it was just the same. I couldn't believe how. And I can remember saying to this copper out there, Vinny, and I said, and it's really weird. They have segregation, and the police are all Catholic, right? It's a sectarian police.
New
force.
York, right? Yeah,
New York, yeah. But all different factions of European Catholicism. So you'll have the Irish have their area in the locker room, right? And this Italian guy, they put me with an Italian. They said, no, we can't put you with the Irish. He said, no one likes Irish. He called them pricks. He said, the mick pricks. Don't go with the mick pricks. And then you've got the Polish. He said, everyone loves the Polish, They
do it properly.
And they got their lockers. You've got the Irish lockers in the locker room, their section. And then you've got the Polish. And these grey lockers, right? Of course they are, But every now and then they've got a little bit of black paint on them. And I said, Vinny, what's doing with the black paint? He went, no, that's the integrity guy. And we just started getting the integrity stuff in the Met Police, all the equality and all that. So I said, oh, yeah, it's going that way in England. And he went, someone writes something maybe a bit racist or a bit of a slur on their nationality or their religion, And the integrity guy comes on and he sort of lines it out with this black marker pen. He said, come to the Italian side. And then you go along and they're all clean, all the Irish bit and the Polish bit very clean. And then you get to the total chaos. And this is the Italian section. And all the lockers are sprayed black.
Just cover the whole thing up.
And I said, Vinny, what's going on? He said, it's pointless. He said, last week someone put, Vinny's mum sucks elephant dick. Wrote on the locker and on the door and drew a picture of it as well. And so the guy had to just paint. And he said, you'll look, some of them got 4 or 5 layers of paint.
Oh, because they just, again.
Yeah, because they just...
Why were you out there?
There was an investigation when they needed a statement taken. So I got sent out with a colleague.
But why was that so specific to you? Why did they need you?
Well, they'll pick anyone. The unit I was on, we went all around the world.
Right. What was it? What was the unit?
It was on Vice.
Oh, okay,
so
right.
With prostitution.
But surely they have that out there.
Yeah, but when our victims or our witnesses go out there for continuity, we have to go out there.
Oh, there was actually a crime.
Yeah, so a witness had gone out there.
I see.
We needed to go out. So the CPS have to authorise it, and then they send you out. So we used to have to keep an American Express card, an Amex card, and a passport in our desk.
Oh, just because you might have to...
Yeah, because you could get sent off. But guys were coming in and they'd say, right, you're going to Ukraine, you're going to Thailand. One guy went out to Australia. He flew out, he got deep vein thrombosis. And...
from the plane?
From the plane. It was so bad, fat bloke. It was so bad that the doctor said, this man can't fly for the next 6 months. So he spent 6 whole months just doing nothing in Australia, and they just
they kept him out there.
He got paid. He got paid $100 a day, expenses on top of his wages, and he came back even fatter. It's amazing. And their coppers would come over here, and there's all this stuff going on. But it was. I just found it, and I said to this guy, I said, it's incredible. I said, it's just like London. Right. He went, yeah. He said, the strange thing is, when we get our cousins come over, he said, so if they come from Australia, New Zealand or South Africa, they all say exactly the same thing. Right. So there's this strand of like DNA that the Commonwealth left behind, and the system is exactly the same.
Yeah.
But I did, when I was teaching, I taught police interview skills to detectives for a couple of years, and I taught South African police, and that was a different game. This one guy, he was on the transport section of it, and he said, I could deal with 4 murders a day. And he was just telling me some of the things they do.
Yeah.
They just shoot and kill.
Life's not worth anything.
He said, if we get a carjacking and they don't stop and we get caught, we just shoot them. And he said, that's it. We call up the ambulance, take the body. He said, there's no investigation, nothing. That's it. Jesus. He said, it's a paperwork done. He said, life. Yeah. And he said, but the suicide rate amongst the coppers is phenomenal.
Right, yeah.
And alcoholism is through the roof.
Yeah,
he said,
divorces.
And beating their wives. It takes its toll. So it's all good being this tough guy and everything else, but it will erode your sensitivity, your compassion.
Yeah.
And of course, your family.
Your senses have to become deadened to it.
Oh,
like it's part of the job. Otherwise, you just go mad. You can't be a nice, warm, affable person.
I'll tell you a funny story. So this was part of our vice patrol here. Soho. And Walker's Court. We got a lot of young girls, a lot of the child prostitutes. And just down the road, Piccadilly was where the young rent boys. So these were young kids that were being pimped out. These streets were dirty.
Yeah.
20, 30 years ago. It was a horrible, horrible dive. And drug dealing was everywhere. It was just this weird subculture that existed in this tiny little enclave that's here. And at the time, I was on probably the best investigative job in the world, right? I was on the gaming unit, the casino squad. So it was me and an inspector, and it was phenomenal. My boss was always going to Vegas and things like that, and we investigated cheating in casinos. And London has the highest payout casinos in the world.
Really?
Yep.
Even in America?
Collectively, they will, but individually, no way. No one beats London. So just up the road here, you've got Curzon Street. So if you walk, slightly north, chuck a left, cross over Regent Street, you're into Mayfair. You're into the most opulent part of Europe, maybe the world. And Curzon Street's got 3 or 4 casinos, which are what they call upper tier. And all you see is like a door, a lovely oak door with a nice dressed doorman, old school gent standing there. It'll be an ex-army guy, and he'll let these select few in. Door gets shut. you don't know what it is. And there's one called Aspinall's, and you go in there, and it's just this world of pure opulence, and it's owned by Damien Aspinall, the zoo guy who's got Aspinall Zoo, very well-known sort of anthropologist and everything else. And it's just incredible, and the decor is beautiful. And the head of security said that it's not uncommon for one guy to walk out of here with £33 million on him.
Yeah. No, I've actually heard.
Yeah.
I know some people as well.
Really?
It's insane.
Oh, God.
Really
it's
insane.
unbelievable.
Yeah.
So there was a little gang come over here, and they had this fantastic cheat that worked off mobile phones. Yeah. And it was a predictive device, which when Bluetooth came out, they seized the opportunity. And this thing had a little button wired into it, which the button was on a cord that ran from the phone to the leg. And they tapped it at certain points when the ball's being spun.
Yeah.
And it was a predictive device. You can actually buy them now. And I managed to get hold of one. And a guy trained me, and he said, by the end of, once you suss this, you'll be able to predict, cheat-wise, roulette to an 80% success rate. Yeah. Bear in mind, the win rate for roulette is 2%. Right. 2%. There's a saying in the casinos, we will take your money. Right? Everyone that walks in there, the guy says, we robbed them.
Yeah, yeah.
So you get the lower level ones down the road here, which are just jumped up betting shops. Yeah. Then you get the middle tier where people think they've made it. Yeah.
Night out.
They have a nice, well, they go in these places and it's expensive, and they think this is it. Yeah. You know, we're in Vegas because they're all glitzy. They're Vegasy. You know, it's
light entertainment.
Yeah, you know, just loads of brass, and you know, they think they made it, but there is this upper tier which is so like an old colonial British gentleman's club. And I watched one guy once. He had his own room that he'd booked. It was called a cell privé. And it was something to do with the Greek shipping magnate, one of the big families there.
Onassis.
Yeah, Papadopoulos.
Yeah. IOU at the end, whatever it is. Ironically.
Like that, you know. And he was paying £30,000 a spin on roulette. A spin lasts 7 seconds. Yeah. And he didn't want to get up to go to the toilet, so they gave him a silver bucket.
Come on.
He just weed in it.
No.
Yeah.
You don't want to leave the table.
This guy... He showed it to me. He said, this guy has done, this morning, he's done 13 million quid. And there was another room. There was a guy from the Nigerian embassy, and he'd done a similar amount. Well, where's his money coming from? The Nigerian embassy. Yeah. It was just, and I said, that the morals, the ethics of it is wrong. He said, John, we're not a church. Yeah. So don't come the moral stuff in here, because they don't exist in here. Yeah. But the security is very good. They used a lot of the security managers were There's a regiment in the British Army. It's part of the SAS called the 14th Int Regiment. They're an intelligence regiment that was trained up to SAS standards, but solely for Northern Ireland. And these are very, very sharp men. And when they leave the regiment, they get offered jobs in these very upmarket casinos. Yeah. So they can fight, and they're switched on, and they're very resilient guys. They were brilliant. They were awesome. So I did a lot of work with them. So this gang of Serbians came over, and they had this scam on this phone, and they've gone into a casino, and it's the Ritz Club beneath the Ritz. So the Ritz is beautiful, but beneath there is the Ritz Club, which is opulence beyond. Yeah. It takes it to another level. They've got casino chips with diamonds in them.
Jesus Christ.
And that's where the royal family go.
Right.
That's where Andrew goes and all that. Yeah. It's a stunning place. And they'd scammed them for 2.3 million. You Google it, the Ritz scam, right? Anyway, they get arrested, and one of the guys they've come back for a second night, and that's how they get caught. So I said, well, when they come back, you're gonna have to nick them, because they shouldn't win like this. Yeah. I said, I think they've got a phone. This is what it is. But what happened when they turned up? I was at home, and I get a call that they're back in. So I said, right, I'll get a team to come and nick them. And they nicked them. And my boss, the guy said, I know I've been arrested. Can I just ring my wife? She's sick in hospital. And of course, he's got the phone, and he presses a button, deletes the algorithm. Yeah. It's on this Nokia phone. Mm-hmm. It has to be a Nokia. I was like, oh, you're joking. Yeah. So we sort of lost the main evidence. Anyway, I go and search. When I get in, I go and search this guy's hotel room, and I find 2.3 million cash. And it's a lot. Yeah. It's not in a briefcase. It's in 2 massive bin bags like that. Wow. So we end up, police station up the road here, it's called West End Central. So we're in there. I've worked all through the night and I want to go home. I've got kids at home. I'm bringing up kids with me home. My kids need to go to school. And I said, Mum, mate, I'll have to go home. I said, right. He said, I'll call up for a van to collect the property. And there'd been a stabbing. So there was no police vehicles about. They'd all been diverted to deal with this stabbing. I went, mate, I've got to go. He said, what are you going to do? I said, well, let's put them in the bin bags and we'll have to walk them, right? So we went from the police station there and our depot's over there and we got a big safe in there to deal with seizures from brothels so it can take money. He said, you sure? I said, well, no one's going to know. Anyway, we walked through here and as I'm walking through this street here, there's 2 crack dealers and a prostitute, right? A crack whore prostitute, right? And I always remember her name. I won't say her full name, but her name's Georgia, right? And her job, she used to rob punters. She was quite a tough lesbian prostitute and she could fight. Yeah. And she's with 2 drug dealers. And as we're walking down, she says, hello, John, how are you? I haven't seen you because I've gone from street vice onto this casino unit. Right, yeah. And the prostitutes hadn't seen me for a while. Right? And you've got this mutual respect with each other. So we're having this bit of banter. But these are people that are crackheads. They'll do anything for a tenner. And I said, no, we're just walking some property back. She said, what you got now? I said, we got £1 million each in cash. And she looked at me and laughed. And this big black drug dealer went, mate, you get your head cut off for that down here. And I went, for serious, we've got £1 million each. And they went, yeah, go on.
Jesus. Oh.
But they didn't believe it.
Yeah, Christ.
Because why should they?
Yeah.
But we had literally walked £2 million. I mean, if anyone had robbed us, that would have been the easiest 2 million anyone had ever made ever in the world.
But you're just blacking out at that point. I just want to get home.
I would have given it to her.
Take it.
I missed the train.
The child prostitution. What is that? Have they cleared up like the vice and all that? Did they get anywhere with it?
They sort of did.
Is there a vice squad in Central and W1?
There was. There isn't anymore. There isn't. Not. They got rid of it. And my part in line, because there was 2 of us that went on to child vice. That was it. You know, that was it for London.
2 people.
2 people. And one day we found 10 kids in a day that were involved in it, 10 in a day. In 3 days we found 50. And that's the pace it was building at. And this is why the government shut me down and my whole whistleblowing thing. But my parting words to the former commissioner, whom I openly and publicly and officially called a liar in court, because she did lie, a woman called Cressida Dick. I said, I guarantee now, because they shut the unit down when I spilled the beans on everything, I said that you lot will never investigate another case like this. And only when the Jimmy Savile saga went on did they have to, by royal decree, start looking into it again. And for that 7-year period, they never looked at it.
Nothing was going on with child vice for all those years.
Nothing. And it's one of them things, you're not going to find it. You've got to look for it. Whereas other criminality, it comes to you. The stabbing and all that.
Right,
as bad as it is, it's base level, idiotic, moronic criminality. Yeah. It could be dealt with in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
And do you know how they're dealt in a heartbeat? Have coppers going out and stopping and searching young kids of the demographic that are doing it. Yeah. It's going to politically upset people. But do you know what? You can't make an omelette without breaking eggs. So what? And when I gave a talk to mothers of violence, these are women who had lost children through stabbings, and it was part of the Save a Life, Put Down a Knife thing. The crowd there, it was in East London, predominantly the parents of these kids from the black community. And I said, because I knew I was an ex-cop, I said, what would you want the police doing? Every single one, unanimous, without exception, black mums and dads said, more stop and search by the police. So whatever the white middle class lefties want, do you know what? They can shove it. Because, and when Theresa May, the Home Secretary, turned around and said that they are basically going to eliminate police stop and search because some black people don't like it, blah, blah, blah. My mate turned around to me and said, she's just condemned so many young black kids to die on the street. And the moment she did that, stabbings went boom. We've seen what it is. And 80%, my mate, he was one of the most senior and experienced, long-serving detectives for South East London, the biggest, most busiest murder unit in the UK, maybe Europe, I don't know. And I said, who are the majority of people doing stabbings? He said 80% of them are young black kids with cannabis psychosis.
Right.
You know, so again, and that's the reality.
Yeah.
You know,
but they're introducing politics into the real world. It doesn't. The two don't mix, so you can't.
Yeah, and proclaiming to help a certain demographic, but in fact,
literally
slaying them
when it comes to it.
Yeah.
Have you, with all the police forces that you've been around to, have you ever seen like other? You go, this is a well-run, like the Nordic countries, and like they get a good reputation. Sweden,
I don't know.
Norway.
Holland.
Well, there's a really good. I can't remember it now. It's a film and it's about the Danish police. It's rough.
The bridge, you mean?
It's not the bridge.
Okay.
It's a film. I can't remember what it's called. It come on by chance, and it's about two coppers that end up on a housing estate in Copenhagen.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's just madness.
Right.
They've got, like, same as Sweden. They've got some terrible social problems. Sweden, horrific.
Like what? Poverty?
Gang violence and stuff like that.
Yeah,
you
there's
know,
a lot.
And France is the same. Look, there's a brilliant film. You ever want to watch a good film? I think it's a film for production. It's called La Haine. Yeah, it's a French film, and it was made post riots. France kicked off.
Yeah.
What France does, it pigeonholes, right? It's migrants, right? And France, like the UK, had an empire, right? And I think in Paris, 19% of Parisians are blacks from the colonies, right? From, you know, Ivory Coast and places like that, and, you know, Benin and everything else. So it's got a big sort of ethnic sort of populace. But what they do, and North Africa, Algeria, Morocco, Tunisia, they're all French speaking. They shove them all in these housing estates in suburban Paris. So in London, it seems to be that the more inner London, the more violent. You go out, it's not so bad.
Yeah.
In a lot of American cities and all that, it's outside.
Yeah,
they put the problem outside.
Yeah.
And France, there's, I can't remember the name of this architect. I read a book about him. He designed the Tower Block. And he's French, this guy. And post-war, he decided to push his plan into practice with this utopia, you know, with these because it turned into dystopia, these tower blocks, everything. And straight away, it just caused chaos. Suicides went up, social alienation and everything. It turned out to be one of the biggest mistakes that architecturally anyone's ever done, was listen to this idiot. And when he actually writes his book and he gives his justification for why he designed it because a voice in his head told him to. And that's what it comes down to. And he got heavily involved with Aleister Crowley and the occult. So he got really involved into black magic and everything else.
Oh, Jesus.
And he claims demons told him, well, if that's the case, which I don't doubt it is, and if the demons want to destroy society, they've done it.
Maybe.
And of course, France got hit hardest, and Glasgow is another one. They built these things, they don't work, they pull them down because they're bad.
Yeah.
Right, Glasgow had the highest murder rate in the Western world, 10 times higher at one point in New York, stabbings, and it was all from these big estates like Easter House and all these outlying areas, tower blocks. Anyway, so France just kicked off. Marseille, Lyon, Paris, and it burnt France. I can't remember, maybe 20 years ago, it was relentless. And at the backlash of this film was made called La Haine. It's called The Hate. Hate. It's brilliant. It is an absolute awesome film. It's all in French, and it takes three lads. One's Jewish, one's black, and one's, I think, North African, Algerian. And it just shows their day. They go through a day where it turns off a little bit of drug dealing, and then they get a gun, and then a murder occurs, and it just kicks off, and it turns into this riot, and it shows how it all works. It's
have you got any? Like, do you have any good memories from being stuff you fixed, people you helped? Have you got any?
Yeah, loads. I mean, I get messages even now because I've got quite well known.
Yeah.
You know, I get messages from people I've dealt with.
Oh, right.
And I got a thing through the other day on Facebook, and it was a child victim that I dealt with when I was on you know, dealing with the child abuse stuff. And she's touring around Africa now, and she's gone to university. And she went through horrors, this girl. And it was, and it really touched me. Yeah. And that she found me and sent me these pictures of how well she's doing. One young girl that I helped, she was a real character, this girl. She was I would say, the bravest person I ever dealt with. She actually, I can tell this story because it's quite funny, but it's grim, but it's quite funny. So, and then I'll tell you what happened to her. So it was two sisters, both with different dads, and they're actually different colours. One was white with ginger hair, the other was mixed race, right? And the ginger hair girl was the older one, and she just highly intelligent, very sharp girl, but they're from a very rough area, very rough estate in East London. The mum was away with the fairies, and she was getting involved with all these different men. And statistically, let's look at this, a child, 80% of all child abuse isn't by grooming gangs and whatnot, it's in the home. In the home. And a child is 30 times more likely to be sexually abused if a step-parent is involved, is present. So this is where it goes on, you know. And this is one of the things I'm being contacted a lot now because of Elon Musk has sort of teamed up with Tommy Robinson's narrative about the grooming gangs, but it's a dangerous precedent because it takes it away, because they're only a small slither of who do it. It takes it away from the real big problem. And while you're looking there at this little niche market, you're ignoring this huge monster that's, and it's a dangerous thing, and I justify that in a more in-depth talk. But these two girls, the girl now, she's sort of got into her early teen years, and she decides, that's it, I'm going to tell the police about what mum's boyfriend's been doing. And she goes to the police and she reports it, and of course it comes through to our unit and it gets given to me. It was one of the first jobs I ever dealt with. Anyway, I went in and interviewed her, and she was just sharp, and the evidence she was giving was just great, and I could corroborate her. Her sister was nowhere near as sharp as her, and the sister was more difficult. And the strange thing is, this girl got badly sexually assaulted by this guy, but he never raped her. But the sister, he did. He managed to con her and go a lot further with that girl. And anyway, they both had rough upbringings, and it affected them deeply. And there's a thing called reciprocity, and it's, I give you something, you give me something back. And it works. It's bartering. It's the ancient thing. And it's, if you treat people nice, they find it very difficult to go against you. If you're a pig to someone, it's like people say to me, when you dealt with paedophiles, didn't want to just beat them up. Well, where would that get me? It'd get my case thrown out, it'll get me nicked, and I wouldn't be able to use them as an informant. I don't like them, but I'm going to be clever here. God gave me a brain, I'm going to use it instead of using them. You beat them up, you get nothing. You do how the British used to treat spies. If you torture someone, torture don't work. It's been proven not to work, because you're going to get tortured anyway, so you're going to withhold the truth because it's just going to torture you. And then it becomes resentment, and there comes a point where what more can you do to someone? You just ruined them, And so I've dealt with a few survivors of torture, and it just seems and once you start getting in that mindset of hurting people, torturing them, it's like violence becomes very addictive, and power takes over, and you become a bad man. And my early years, I was that bad man because everyone was doing it. And then I didn't want to do it anymore. I didn't want to be that uniform bully that I was. But we all were. We were all fighting with people. And then it starts going into dark places, and it starts going into... You
start breaking the law technically.
Massively. Massively.
So what happened to the girls?
Anyway, so she's telling me all about her life, and it's very intimate, and it's very painful. And you know that when you're getting near the truth, you can see them sort of, and they skip over the truth very quickly.
Right,
They'll give you details about everything, about the water and all this, amazing water and everything else. But when it comes to what happened, boom, it's, so you've got to take them back, keep them there, and really get it out of them. But it's like a pressure release. Once they've actually told you this, it's like taking the rocks out the back of the backpack. The relief is like, you actually see them slump like relief. It's like, I've told someone. As painful as it is, and on camera as well, but we've done it. And that's why victims will find it difficult really to do these podcasts, because the camera's on them again. There's a psychology thing going there. Anyway, she did this, and with the info, I could do a lot with it. So she said, well, what about you? And because I brought up children on my own, and I had a stepfather. And I said, well, not all step parents are bad. My dad died when I was quite young, and he was absent for a lot of my teenage years. And my stepdad was a very, very violent man, to the point, very dangerous man. And when he died, he actually admitted to some horrific crimes of violence, very horrific. But he never laid a finger on me. Never laid but he was what you call a hard man. He'd sleep outside and everything, and he was a very capable man. He could use his hands to do anything. So, and he was fearless. So how he taught me was amazing. I would have never got that from any other man, because this guy was so crazy and so careless and everything else, but so intelligent and so capable. I found it an amazing few years with him, but he was dangerous. And he used to fight, and in the end he died through violence, through the amount of fights he had, everything else. It killed him in the end, and heavy drinking. But he'd been abused as a kid, you know, and the anger is trauma, as I was like to find out. Anyway, he told me something about fighting, and he said every week he had a fight. So I'm telling this little girl, I said, you know, my stepdad used to have a fight every week, and he would be broken. He you know, one day his face was absolutely black, and he had this straw-colour liquid coming out of his ear, and he collapsed. His skull was fractured, and that was a cerebral fluid coming out his ear. Nice. And he collapsed in front of me. I thought he died, and broken arms, everything else. And he said, you know, if someone upsets me, he said, I have to go and give him a pasting. This guy was 6'7", and he was huge. He was massive. Yeah. And he knew how to fight as well. And he said, but I couldn't give them a really good kicking because it weren't their fault. Someone made them an idiot. And I said, oh, what do you mean? He said, no, I'd go around and I'd give their dad a good kicking, and I'd give the mum a good slap round the face for giving birth to him. I thought, well, that's a bit horrible, isn't it? And but the more I went through life, I thought, well, actually, there's a little bit of logic, brutal logic, but there's a bit of logic to that, you know, because it's not their fault why they end up like that. And so I told this young girl, and I said, you know, my stepdad would he would go and give the dad a good kicking, and he'd give the mum a good slap as well. And she laughed her head off. Right? She said, oh, he sounded like a really good bloke. I went, he was a bit crazy. But, you know. Anyway, a couple of days went by, and her abuser was a drug dealer on this big estate, big notorious estate, and everyone's frightened of him. Like, he was just a paedophile, really, when you pick it apart. But he was a connected street guy and all that rubbish. So I get a phone call coming to work, and it's the police station at Islington. And my inspector went, look, the custody sergeant is asking for you. They've got a girl in custody who says she knows you. I went, really? So I ring up the custody, and I said, look, I'm Detective John. Oh, right, yeah, we got this girl here. You need to come and see us immediately. I went, is she all right? Yeah, she's all right. I said, what's she in for? We got for GBH. I went, you're joking? She's a small girl, you know, petite little girl. And I went, who's she GBH? She went, well, she's done over and named this child rapist. And I was like, she's GBH. So I zoomed straight down there, and I get in there, and he said, yeah, we picked her up last night. There was an incident on this estate, and she smashed this guy up with a brick, and his mum. I was like, and smashed the flat up. Anyway, they get her out of the cell. I said, I need to talk to her. She comes out, and she's got her head down. She said, John, I was only doing what you told me to do. Oh, God. And the inspector's there, the sergeant's there, and I went, oh, no. What did I tell you to do? She said, well, beat him up, then beat his mum up. Jesus. I went, I never said that.
And black and white world.
And the inspector said, what's going on here? I said, no, this is out of context. I said, what happened? She went, well, it was my 17th birthday last night. And she said, I sat there and thought, how dare he do this to me? I was a little girl, and what other little girls had he done this to? And she said, I got really drunk and I got really angry. Right. And I thought, I'm not having this. She said, John, I went round his flat. She said, I knocked on his door, and when he opened, she said, I've got this brick and I've smashed him straight in the teeth, and he's gone down and I've done his teeth, right? And then I remembered what you told me about your stepdad. Yeah. So I went in and I'd done his mum as well. Jesus. And then I bricked all the windows. And she said, but I rang the police and called them. And the guy said, yeah, she did actually call the police. And it turned, anyway, this guy calls his friends, and these two heavies turn up. She went, no, he's a child rapist. Oh. And I've just beaten him up. Yeah. So if you want some, I'll give it to you as well. And she said, they legged it. Right. Anyway, the police came. And he said, the funny thing is, the guy won't give a statement. And nor will the mum. And I said, well, what about the damage? She went, well, they said they're going to deal with it. I went, okay. I said, so what we can do with it? He said, well, we've got to interview her, but she's had to be nicked for GBH and criminal damage because she did it. Yeah. I said, is there any way of resolving that? He said, well, if she admits to it, we'll give her one of these penalty notices, right? Like £40 fine. Yeah. And she said, no, I'm not going guilty for anything. He got what he deserved. And so I said to her, listen, accept it.
Yeah.
So I ain't got the money. I said, I'll pay it. Right? Just accept it. Anyway, we got it sorted out. Right.
Yeah.
And she looked at me as she was being kicked out the neck. She said, when's he back on bail? I went, next week. She said, have a look at his face when he comes back. Well, he comes back and he has got no teeth.
Oh God,
he's
she done him.
Yeah, she's done him proper, you know. So, but she went on to win the case. It was a real tough trial. She could have had these protective screens and everything. She said, no, I want to go in there and I want to tell the jury, the court, and everyone what he did. So they tried to discredit her and using all their adversarial, barristerial tricks. And she just turned around and said, no, that man raped me, and that's that. And he did it to me, he did it to my sister, boom, boom. That was it, game over. Jury was out for a few seconds, and they found him guilty. And it was a big victory, right? Yeah. And then I think 2 years went by, and I get a message through, can you call me? It's this girl. So I called her up. She said, go and buy the Sun newspaper. I went, okay. Why? She said, just go and buy it. And I bought it. And there she is in the centre page. She's won Apprentice of the Year.
Oh, right.
They run a scheme, and she set herself up doing tanning and well-being and personal training. Yeah. She stopped doing drugs, everything, and she did so well. She became Apprentice of the Year. And she said, that's for you. Yeah. You did that. Oh. And it made me cry.
Yeah,
and so and things like you change lives, and you do. Yeah. And it's just stuff like that.
Just from that, to think, you think, oh, like, it's quite a weak person. You go, what she'd been through to then come out of that. Yeah. That's like a godly amount of self-will to be able to go through that thing and come out a normal person.
But some don't. And, and that's why we end up with the people on the streets. That's why we end up with all the social problems. And this is what they've got to look at in society. And this is what my book's about, is the rawness.
The reality of.
But you've got to have that rawness to understand what you're dealing with. Look, if you want to solve a problem, you need to know what it's really, really about. So if they want to solve knife crime, they've got to look at who's committing it, right? And there's a Chinese saying, isn't there, you can't solve a problem until you understand the problem. They've got to realise these are young kids from a certain demographic that are doing it to other kids from a certain demographic. They've got to address that. Yeah. They can't say, oh, it's overarching. You know, it's not. You've got to know what you're dealing with, and then you can deal with it properly. And then you go to war on it.
When I was working in nightclubs, I worked in a big nightclub, and I was fairly young. And when we had these certain nights on the garage nights, you know, and they were bad, and some strange doorman would turn up that I didn't recognise. And I said to somebody, like, who's he? And he go, anyway, oh, so-and-so, yeah, he's killed a load of people, so we just have him here. And there's a police officer there, and they were saying to him, this is what I overheard. He said, no, he's not working here. He's just sort of here with us, because they were saying, what's he doing here, sort of thing. And then the police went away anyway. And I said, why do you have him here? And I didn't really understand. And they said, just people know who he is. Yeah. So him just being there stops all the fights, because people don't mess around. I thought, you can't put that on paperwork. Like, to protect this club, we need a nutter who's murdered people. That will stop people. You go, no, you can't have him there. But then we got the fights. You go, well, you just have to deal with that. And you go, it just reminded me of like the weird sense of like, you're not in reality. Like, not doing this will cause problems. Yeah, but you can't because of political, and you're not allowed to say things.
There's a book called Freakonomics, and it's really interesting. And it goes on about things like that. You know, why do certain things work? Yeah. And why do certain things not work? Yeah. And if it's proven to work, then you've got to go with it. Yeah. You know, you've got to work with it.
Statistics are the statistics. I don't care about the political.
And the government have done it. If you look at during the Second World War, right? So Mussolini was against the mafia.
Yeah, right.
And he said, right, I'm putting them all in prison because they're a menace. So he put them in prison, and organised crime stopped. It actually stopped. And the mafia ceased existing because of Mussolini, right? And it was a big problem, right? So all the American mafia were really upset about everything. So what they did was because they had strongholds on the docks and everything else, they said, right, no one's working. That's it, stop working. So America couldn't start exporting its munitions, and it caused a problem. So they had to have a sit down with the mafia in America. And they said, well, how do we resolve this? So they said, well, take over Sicily. If you invade Sicily and let our bosses go, we'll get it's going again.
Oh, right.
So they did. So they invaded Sicily. They invaded the prison, was the first place they went to, let all these mafia dons out, and then the workers all went back, and of course, organised crime started again.
Yeah.
You know, they've always done these sort of things, and it's done so quietly.
Yeah.
You know, it's the same as what we used to do with informants. I mean, I would go into prisons, and I had an ability to get people to become an informant. So my skills would be used. And there was no qualification really for my skill. I just wasn't naturally good communicator. So if they had someone and it was mainly to do with the Turkish mafia, and if they had someone in the prison that they needed information from, they would send me in there and I'd do a deal with them.
Yeah.
I'd say, well, what do you want? I don't want to be deported. One guy, he ended up in Barlinnie prison in Glasgow, and it was so violent, and they hated anyone foreign in there. And apparently the English prisoners, when they went there, they started starving, because every time they went to get something to eat, the Scottish prisoners would punch them in the face and cut them. They call it Mars barring, they slash them. Mm. So all the English stayed in their cells and wouldn't come out because they would just get battered.
Right.
And this guy was Turkish, and he was getting the same. You know, he was just getting He said, I'm fighting every day. He said, just get me out of here. And I said, well, I'll see what I can do. And I managed to get him transferred to another prison, which weren't so bad. And he got transferred. He said, whatever you want, whatever you want.
Yeah.
So, and he gave us everything, you know.
I reckon you get away with a lot because you're naturally quite a nice bloke. As simple as that sounds, I think that's... Well, you can't fake that. It's just in...
I was asked once, because I had such a good sort of success rate and it caused a lot of jealousy. And I was asked once, you know, how did you do it? And I said, it was so simple. I acted stupid. I said, I refused to wear a suit, right? So if you saw me, you didn't think I was anything. Yeah. And I was usually naturally scruffy anyway. And I acted thick. But what I would do was I would know everything. I would take my paperwork home and I would read it and read it and read it and read it, so I knew it inside out. And I've got a really good retentive memory. I can remember stuff, you know, with quite fine detail and everything else. But I would act thick, and I would deliberately act thick, because a wise man plays a fool. And that was the secret of my success. Right. I was nice to people. I shook everyone's hand. I never judged. They got a cup of tea, no matter, there could be a child murderer. They would get a cup of tea and they would get their dinner. Someone said, spit in it. I said, I'm spitting in no one's... What,
no,
you know, you want to spit in it, you spit in it, but I'm not doing that. Yeah. I'm playing that game. And I was up front and I was kind, but I acted thick. Yeah. And I generally acted thick.
It's funny when you think, it takes a lot of nuance to understand, but if you forget your training, if you're walking in a suit, or you work with a tie, or you walking with something else, that automatically has to push the things in different directions. Do you know what I mean? If somebody walks in and they've just got a suit on.
But the thing is, I wasn't a leader, right? Now, if I was a manager, I'd expect the managers to be in earlier than everyone else, lead from the front, not follow me, I'm right behind you, which tends to be the mantra of a lot of bosses. A good boss, he leads from the front and he has to set the standards. And the standard is good dress code, clean working area, clean desk, everything. Get that. But I'm not a manager. Right, yeah. I don't want to be a boss. I don't want to be a sergeant. I don't want to be an inspector. I don't want to. I want to be me. Yeah. And I don't want to work with anyone who's stupid or an idiot. I want to work with one person, and that's that. So I never was on a team. Yeah. So any success, that's my hard work, right, which I'll gladly share with a good partner, my hard work and my efforts. And of course, they were reaping benefits to a ridiculous level, and it caused such animosity. You know, right, so I can't remember the year, I think 2003, the National Crime Squad sees 7 kilos of heroin. It was quite a low amount, right, as a collective organisation, right? The next year, 2004, it might have been 2005, I seized nearly 370 kilos of heroin, right? You know, flipping out, smashed that on my own with no surveillance. I saved the police millions, you know, no surveillance, no this, no intrusive, no nothing. And I just did it through the way I worked, you know, and they hated it. And as a result, instead of getting commended for it, I got arrested on suspicion of corruption.
Because I thought there must be something going on.
Yeah, how did he do it? And I'm not, you know, but I sussed the algorithm. I worked out how this works. And wearing a suit don't make it work.
Right.
It works by getting information from people that are involved in it.
Yeah.
So if you've got an informant, you haven't got to do surveillance. When you've got surveillance and you're following people and all that, you can't get in the front door. You can't get in their head. You can't get in. But when you've got an informant, you're in there.
Yeah.
You've got like a mobile drone that works for you.
Did informants ever get money?
They got a lot of money.
Oh, you could?
Yeah.
And was that through legal? That wasn't illegal to pay?
They could get cash up to about 40 grand.
No.
But yeah.
And that's not off the books. That's
No, that's genuine, legit. But where it went wrong,
yeah.
where it went wrong was the police officers, right? So you go along. It used to be there'd be 2 keys to a deposit thing, and they'd open it up and they'd get the money out, and it'd all done in front of them. The coppers were having half of it and giving it
Right, I
half.
can imagine.
That's where it all went.
Right, I see.
So what
Ruined it.
Yeah, what you've got to do is you've got to be upfront and clean. So when I got in all the trouble that came my way, and they were trying to put me in prison and they were arresting me for rubbish, I won't worry because they had nothing on me because I weren't dirty.
Yeah.
I was stupid at times, and all that, but I just weren't dirty. I just wasn't, so crack on. You've got nothing.
Yeah.
And I said to him, take me to court, put me before a jury, right? And I'm telling you now, the jury will love me and they'll hate you. So do it. But it'll be self-defeating.
Yeah.
And of course, every case was thrown out, every single one.
Oh yeah, the more I've known you, I definitely think that you being you is a skill set. And obviously you're trained. I think you've got something that's carried you through that you can't train that. It just naturally is you.
Yeah, and you have to watch your environment. Like people going about judgment, right? Oh, you shouldn't judge.
Yeah.
Absolute bollocks. You must judge to stay alive. Right? As a woman, you get on a train, you judge that compartment before you sit down. You go through dynamic judgment. I ain't sitting next to him, and more so with women than men because of the...
Because it works, it's kept you alive.
Yeah, you have your sensor up. You
have to. It's judgment. Whatever way you look at it. So people go, oh, no, you shouldn't do it. No, bullshit. You're going to be a victim of something sooner or later. Yeah. You have to judge to survive. Yeah. Prejudice, that's just something else that's different and all that. But and also, there's many things. Because my stepfather was such a tough guy, when I went in the police, a lot of the guys were ex-military and they were tough people, some of them, because, they were violent and all that, but some of them were pseudo-tough. They actually, in their heart, they weren't that tough. And I used to cycle into work in the cold rain and everything else. So, and I'd cycle miles, and I'd do my training because I needed to be sharp, fit and strong. So, and I learned the law and everything, but if you saw me, you'd think I was scruffy, I'd have a cigarette, oh, he's unfit and he's that. But
right, yeah.
The opposite was true.
Yeah.
What they didn't see was that morning, I've been up at 5. I've cycled 2 miles in. I've gone in that gym for an hour and I'm ready to go, And of course, what they'll see is a scruffy guy with a bacon roll and a cigarette.
Yeah, right.
Which I wanted them to see that.
Right, okay, yeah.
That's good. I'm glad you see that side of me.
Which, what did you serve when? You did the Vice, you did River...
Yeah, I was...
What do they call it, Riverboat?
Yeah, River Police. So I started off a uniform copper.
Yeah.
And then I was started off in South East London, and I got in a lot of trouble, really a lot of trouble. I got in trouble for all sorts of crazy things because I didn't understand the rules,
right?
And it was just new to me and all that. So, but I was liked, and they gave me a second chance, and they sent me up this part of the world, and that was brilliant. It was just what a lovely time. It was an amazing time, and it was funny because all the coppers where I was before. They were a bit older and they were hardened because it was a hard area. So, and it was busy. So there weren't really much fun. And when you went out for a drink, it was hard drinking. Everything was hard.
Right, yeah. All extremes.
You drank hard, boom. And it was, they'd fight with each other and all that. But up here, they were younger and it was just a laugh. And it wasn't as violent. And it was just a laugh. Right. And this is when I got into the CID. But the CID unit I went in, they've written books about it. It was the most corrupt CID they've ever had. Everyone that was in trouble because the new commissioner of police said we're going to hit corruption hard. So they shoved all those suspects of corruption for whatever level into this one CID department. Right. And of course I ended up going in there at the same time.
Right, okay.
And it was very Masonic.
Right.
There was near enough all Masons. And they were up for bad things, drug dealing, armed robbery, conspiracy for murder, all this. And these are hard guys as well.
Yeah.
And I ended up there in the CID. And to be honest, I loved it. I thought it was brilliant. But I joined the police to be a diver because I loved swimming. I loved the water.
Wow, that was, yeah.
It was your sister, right, that suggested?
Yeah. My sister did, you know. She said, no, they got a diving unit because I loved the water. I just loved swimming. And it came out, the River Police. And it's the most unique job, and it is the most oversubscribed application. So for every one place, there's 2,000 applicants. It's just ridiculous, right? So there's 4 places, and I got one of them. They gave it to me, and it was just this. It was ancient. It's the first police force in the world, and the oldest police building in the world. The police station stands right on the front of the Thames in the East End of London. It was built in 1798, and it was the site of the first policeman ever killed.
Right.
2 days after it was opened, the policeman was shot because the locals didn't want it. The old Cockneys, they weren't having none of that. And and it was just great. It was just an amazing place.
Well, how long's the training when you got accepted?
Yeah, 2 years. You have to do 2 years boat training because you end up having the same skills as a skipper of a boat, of a container vessel.
Oh, right. Okay.
A ferry license.
So you're not a copper on a boat. You actually have to be trained on.
The Met Navy, they call it. Right. Yeah, so you have to be trained as a pilot.
Right. Okay, right.
So you have to do this national exam. It's run by the Department of Transport, and it lasts 8 hours. So it's all boat skills, tidal water. Right. You have to spend 2 days at sea. Yeah. You do fire training, knots. Also, it's crazy. It's mad. So,
what were the things that would come up like day to day?
Dead bodies.
Oh God, just straight away,
bodies. Dead. Yeah.
So that wasn't an anon.
Yeah, you would get one dead body a week, and
you talking about on the Thames?
Yeah, on the Thames. Yeah,
one a week.
Yeah, and they stank, and and it was amazing how many of them were paedophiles, right? And they could never determine cause of death.
I was going to say, was it suicide or somebody's thrown them over?
You'll never know because the body goes under because the Thames is one of the highest tidal ranges of a metropolitan river. I think there's one in Canada that's a bit higher because the further you go from the equator, the bigger the tide.
Oh, right, yeah.
So the Thames has been narrowed to half its original size.
Right.
So you've got this 7 metre tidal range in 6 hours. It goes down 7 metres. Yeah. Right, and so it's a big river that's been confined, so it goes in and out like a bullet. So something like 8 knots, the tidal flow, which is incredibly powerful. Yeah. There's all old structures under there, which cause eddy currents. So if a body goes in, they go under. And they get hit by boats, they get eaten by eels. Right. So when they come up, the body gases blow them up. They're in a mess, and they pop and explode. So black people go white, and white people go black. Right. So that it's strange. It's and they're just rotten, and they have limbs missing. So the first one that I ever sort of got my hands on, we were out on a training boat up the Thames in central London by Waterloo, and there was one of these tourist boats with loads of little kiddies on it going to see Tower of London or something. Yeah. And we have to stop the flow of traffic, right? So they put, and the boats just sort of they call it stemming the tide. They just sit there and wait while we try and get this body. The body was found by one of these big rubbish catching barges you see on the Thames, full of rubbish, and this body was stuck in there. So we went alongside it, and there was this guy in this jacket, and he was dead. And back then the boats were quite rudimentary, and you sort of had to get hands on. You get a big long hook, pull the body in, and then you grab it and you try and pull it onto the boat. So I managed to pull the body and pulled it round to the side, and of course there's all these kids looking, and they're horrified. And so the guy I'm with said, "Get the body on as quick as you can." So I pulled the arm, and the arm the actual arm come off, and I'm holding it like a zombie film. And these kids are just horrified. Yeah, the whole arm come off.
Yeah, I suppose he's rotted away.
Yeah, and I was like, just chuck that in and try and get the rest of it in.
Christ.
And you can't identify the body, and it's so they had a guy there. His job was to identify the body. He was a detective that was an expert at these sort of water damage sort of forensics and all that. And he was one of the only ones in the world. So if you went onto the body identification unit, I couldn't go on it because it smelt so bad.
Right, yeah.
I couldn't stand the smell. I would be sick all the time. I hated it, and I would try and keep the body underwater as long as I could to stop the smell. Because the moment you put them up, it's vile. Yeah. It's vile. But when the tsunami occurred out in Thailand, there's a lot of British out there, and he gets called out there. So we're going to work one day, and he's got to take someone. So they come in and said, who wants to go to Thailand? Long-term deployment. There's a job in Thailand with the tsunami identifying these bodies. So I had the kids, I couldn't go and all that. So another guy said, I'll go. So off they go to Thailand. So anyway, he's out of Thailand for quite a while. And anyway, he comes back. And I said, what's it like? He said, it's just appalling. He said, because they've got no mortuaries, right? And what they have got isn't refrigerated. So I said, what do they do? He said, well, what they do out there, because the bodies are on the river and it's slightly tidal, they tie rocks to the legs and weigh them down on the beach. So twice a day the bodies are floating, rotting in the tropical sun.
Horror film.
Cut the hands off them.
Yeah.
Right. And they've been cutting the hands off the bodies so they can fingerprint them.
Oh. Yeah.
And he said, so there's all these... So
just take the hands.
The British ones get identified and they just get left being eaten by... They're full of crabs. And he said it stinks. He said it's just barbaric, right? It's awful. He said, but the only upside is there's so many paedophiles out there. They got caught on the tsunami that we've cleared up a lot of missing paedophile cases.
Oh, right.
Because they're all out there tied to rocks, floating around. And and then the Bali bombing, and he got sent out there as well. They sent him out to that, and he said that was even worse. He said it was just rotten, just awful. Yeah. So it makes you appreciate that when things happen over here, we've got such an infrastructure. Right, and we're pretty much uncorruptible. There is a lot of corruption. Yeah. We all know but compared to these places where it's it's individual stuff. And
what other countries did you work in? We're going to finish
well, I know I couldn't go anywhere because I had the kids at home. Yeah. But people were going everywhere. When I started tracking down the sex offenders and paedophiles, I was working with police forces from all around the world. So I was working with the Falkland Islands police, the states of Jersey and Gibraltar, and the other one was the Ascension Islands. Yeah. And
which is the one that's going to kick you off. It said, if you don't leave, we're going to arrest you.
Yeah, the Ascension Islands.
Oh, because the mayor was involved.
Yeah, the mayor was involved in paedophilia. Yeah. So and the really strange thing is what they do, because you've got the Pitcairn Islands. Yeah. They had a big, and the Pitcairn Islands are what Captain Cook sort of discovered. They're in the middle of the Pacific, sort of, I don't know, 1,000 miles between Hawaii and Australia. They've got these Pitcairn Islands, right? And how it works with the British is whatever nearest county to the British mainland that's what they're affiliated to.
Oh,
so the Pitcairn Islands were part of Kent Constabulary.
Police, right,
So if the officer in the Pitcairn Islands needs to do a driving course, he gets flown all the way over to Kent.
Was that something the Wicker Man? Was that sort of
that sort of thing?
Send the British copper over there because
where was the Falkland Islands? They're part of Devon and Cornwall Police.
Yeah. So
they do their detective training over in Devon. So it's really weird how but it's the same system all around. But islands are very strange places. They've got this very weird culture on an island. I'd never live on one because it's just that is where you get real endemic high level corruption. Yeah. And once you're on there, you're stuck. You ain't going anywhere.
Well, England is kind of like an island.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, England is sort of.
Just a bigger version. But you got the Cayman Islands. That they had problems in the Cayman Islands. So they, I think they get a lot of Central Americans and all that go there, and they end up getting arrested and stuck in this HMP prison, so Her Majesty's Prison, the Cayman Islands. So they was getting a bit of a rough time, these prisoners. So they decided to revolt and have a riot in the prison. Of course, they haven't got many police officers, so they don't know what to do. So they call up the Met Police and say, look, can you send some lads? So we've got the TSG, the Territorial Support Group, the heavy mob. So there was a couple of guys I worked with. They get sent out there. So they all get flown out to the Cayman Islands to suppress this riot. And they're like, well, how do we get in there? They've all got weapons. They're kicking off. So what they decided to do, they went to a local building firm and they borrowed a load of bulldozers and they bulldozed the wall of the prison. Well, of course, the prison wall fell down and killed loads of prisoners. They just all got flattened. Of course, the bulldozers went over them.
Right.
And they
were behind
killed
the wall.
loads of it, but it never got in the press. And my mate was saying, no, the wall went down and the guys were behind it and just got squashed.
Was there no other way of getting in than a bulldozer?
Well, not that they come up with. They said, "Oh, we'll just bulldoze it," and they got the authority. Went, yeah, go on, just do it. And then it finished it.
Did you have anything to do with prisons, like anything?
Only with informants.
Oh, okay, right.
So I would go into these prisons and I would get people to recruit as informants. But I mean, one of the guys that I was visiting quite on a regular basis. He was heavily involved in organised crime, and he was up in the Scottish system. And he said to me, "John, there's a guy in here. He's in the news a lot." He said, "I need to tell you something about him." I said, "Okay." He said, "Look, he's innocent, and they're saying he's this big terrorist and a murderer, but he's not." He said, "Because no one's allowed near him. Wherever he goes, he's always got these guards, and no one's allowed to talk to him." He said, "But I go in the mosque. They've made a room because there's no Muslims in the Scottish prison system. Back then there weren't. So apart from the guy I was seeing and this terrorist they had, so that they've got this little room and they decided to make it into a makeshift mosque for them to do their prayers." He said, "They leave us alone. The guard's going to have a cigarette and he's telling me this stuff. And he's not allowed to talk to anyone in the prison. He's been there years." He said, "And they're moving him. They're flying him out." And I said, "Well, who is he?" He said, "His name's Abdul. And it's Abdul el-Megrahi, the Lockerbie bomber."
Oh.
You know, from the big Lockerbie. There's a film coming out, Lockerbie. And it's probably quite an apt time to say this. And he said, "He never did it, John." He said, "He was doing for the British government what I do for you." He said, "He was an informant. He was giving information to him." And he said, "He's innocent." He said, "And everyone in his prison knows he's innocent." Because I said, "Does he not get a hard time because he killed lots of people in Scotland because of the plane crashing?" He went, "No, he never did it. And everyone believes he never did it." He said, because he was going to speak out about there is government corruption around this. This is what they've done to him. And now they're moving
they can just
him.
throw a key away and then you don't hear from him again.
He said, "Can we help him?" I said, "Well, I don't know what to do." So I said, I'll write it down. So I went into work and I said, "So I've got to put this on paper." But they said, "Don't put it on the computer, handwrite it."
Yeah.
So when you've got really sensitive information, they said, and what they say is it can't go in the system because of corruption. Corrupt officers might see it. So, but you handwrite it, and of course you have to hand it to someone, and it's never seen again. Right. So whether that goes in the file B1N or not, you don't know.
P1N.
That's what they call it, P1N. That's so you never know where it goes.
Right.
And so
that's all you can do, really. You can't. Yeah.
It's so open, but you go on about abroad. So a guy I work with, that there was a murder on the British Virgin Islands.
Right, we'll end on this. Go.
Yeah, right, so he said, "I'm getting sent out to the British Virgin Islands and, to help with this murder." So, because they've got no murder detectives. So they fly him out to British Virgin Islands. So the moment he gets there, there's this guy's been caught. He's already admitted it, but not officially. So they say to him, "Look, we know it's him. He's admitted doing it. If you interview him and he puts his hand up, you go home." So he said, "So if we keep him on remand and just say he's not refusing to help, you can," and he ended up stretching out for a year before the bloke actually went, "Yeah, all right then." So basically told the bloke, "Shut your mouth and we can all have a nice little learn about this." So they kept him out for a year doing sod all, So,
right, so what have you got? You've finished your book. I'm glad. I wanted to ask you about that.
Yeah, the book is...
Have you got any publisher behind it, or are you just doing it off your own back?
Doing it off my own back, but a guy has offered. He's got a publishing thing. He has offered.
Yeah, I know a couple of people.
Well, yeah, if that falls through, then I'll come and see you.
Yeah, definitely.
I've just got to go through the legalities of it. Yeah. Because I'm putting things in. I don't know if it'll get me in trouble or not.
Yeah, well, that's the publisher's role to have a lawyer go through.
Well, there's that famous, infamous Australian gangster in it. Is it Mark Chopper Reed?
Yeah,
and he admits
that's a good film.
It's actually that's a good film to watch as well. Yeah. It's very funny, isn't it? I love that Australian sense of humour.
Right, yeah.
You know, it's brilliant. And if ever you watch a film called The Castle, right? It's an Australian film. It's brilliant.
Okay,
they're great. I love them. But he said when he wrote his book, he said, "Be careful what you put," because his book got him an extra 5 years in prison.
Right, yeah.
You know, so it's...
Chopper Reed said that.
Yeah.
So he's back then. He wasn't so on the ball.
But just to finish on that thing, I get a a message from a guy I was in the police with, asked me to contact another guy that I was in the police with, who's now in Australia. He's in the Gold Coast, Queensland, that sort of area, the tropical sort of bit. And so I ring him up and he went, "Oh, John," he said, "I'm glad you got in touch with me." He said, "I'm out in sort of Brisbane out in Australia now." And he said, I want to thank you for what you're doing, been following your stuff, well done. And he's a guy that when we went to, I end up in this big heroin job and we nearly got shot. And he's a guy I took with him, and that day we both thought we were going to die. And he sort of never forgot it, Anyway, he said, "Oh, I was still telling him about what happened on that day in the East End." And it's another story, but it got dangerous, and it was my recklessness.
Yeah.
I've got no sort of filter when it comes to safety, it sort of don't exist.
How long have you been doing your book for?
A couple. I had a spate where there was a lot going on in my life.
Yeah, maybe
stopped, but I'm back with a vengeance. But this guy, he sort of said to me, he said, "I really wanted a pint," and he said, "I wanted to go into like a British pub."
Right,
he said, "And in the cities you get one or two sort of theme pubs." He said, "But I want an old English
dirty
pub
old pint
where I want a pint." And he said, "There's nothing, and the weekend everything shuts down here, and it's so vast and big." He said, "But 40 miles outside of the city, in the outback, there's a bowls club that the old colonialists left behind, and it's very Victorian, very, very old Britishy, and they've got a really nice oak panelled bar." So he goes along and he applies for membership, but it's very sort of elite, the lawn bowls and all that sort of stuff. So he gives him his CV, and he has to go for a formal interview with the manager in this like panelled room. And they read through it and I said, "Oh, we see you're a former Scotland Yard detective." He went, "Yeah, that's right." And the manager of the club went, "You ever come across a guy called Jon Wedger?"
Oh, right,
went, "Yeah, I do know him. I work with him." And he went, "What's he like?" He went, "Well, a bit reckless, but he's a good guy." And he went, "Well, once a month we sit down and watch his videos."
Oh, right, yeah.
"Can you give him to give us a shout out?" And he said, "And we'll pass your membership."
Oh, there you go. Bloody hell. You carry some weight.
Because I said, "Yeah, of course, I'll happily do it." So I ended up giving...
Do you know there's a former detective called Stephen Kinone or something like that? He's been doing some interviews online. And he's brought a board. I spoke to him. I was going to have him on the show. He's brought a board game out based on something to do with Scotland Yard. And I said to him, like, "Can I get hold of a board game and we'll do a video, we'll play it with you."
Call it Corruption.
It was just online, but I think he's brought it out and is now an actual board game. So I was trying to get hold of him to maybe do a video with you playing it. I don't know what it's about, but
Well, there's a lot of these games coming out, like these escape rooms, and they're all sort of based on a crime scenario. Aren't they?
Oh, right, I don't know.
A bit like Cluedo.
Right.
There's a lot, and there's. I did get approached by someone to come up with an idea about crime and all that, but it wasn't really mine.
Have you done any more TV work?
Not so much TV. Yes, I've got hopefully a contract with a production company, which should be doing a series of. I've had to sign an NDA to talk about, but it's a series of high-profile sort of crimes in the UK, and they want like my opinion.
Oh, nice.
So I've got that, and there's two companies that have asked me to do stuff.
I've always said you need to get an agent just to because you've got all this stuff just sat there. Never mind having to go on the podcast. Like, it's just sat there doing nothing in your head. You've got to get that out there. That's useful. I said you should be teaching like police forces. I reckon your time's coming up. I reckon you're that wrong. Things were weird, didn't they, last 20 years with political correctness and things. I think times now.
The problem we had was that I did get offer media contracts when I first whistle blew. But they wanted me to go on about Muslim grooming gangs.
Yeah, they want it, right, yeah.
And that's all it was there must have been Muslims doing it. I was like, well, no, of course there was Muslims that were involved in it. Like there were every other sort of demographic involved. I said, but, most of this was to do with dysfunctional families and care homes. Yeah. And that's 80% of the abuse.
But the right wing, you can't...
No, it was the national media. They just wanted to put out this narrative that it was just Pakistanis doing it. And I went... London's the most diverse city in the world, the most densely populated one in Europe. Yes, there was a couple of cases in the East End where you've got the Bangladeshi boys doing it, right? And they were, but not like the provincial towns where you've got this hardcore Kashmiri Pakistani minicab driver, child grooming, blah, blah, blah. I said, no, it was everything. I said, look, the main one was a white woman involved. There were Jamaican guys involved. There were Latvians, Lithuanians. They were all at it. Politicians, and there was even a copper involved in it. So, but they don't want to hear
the narrative.
No, they don't, and that's a problem. They just wanted me, and even now when you got like these big public speakers now, innocent, they only go on about the same thing, and they want me to go along with it. And I went, I'm not denying and I get attacked because they think I'm going against it. I'm not denying the existence of Muslim grooming gangs. I'm not, right, or Asian grooming gangs or whatever. I said I'm not, but it's not the big picture. It's a small segment of this huge, great circle of dirt. Yeah. And 80% of that is to do with dysfunctional mothers and absent fathers. You know, you want to put this right. Men, stop leaving your kids, and women, look after your kids. Well, I'm glad sort of get better.
Glad you got things moving. I said, I think time's shifted now. I think you're coming to your peak. I think things are ready for what you've got to say.
Theo, everything I said from the word go 10 years ago has happened.
Yeah. And I never forget what you said the other week, the other time you was on it, you said, because it was out of sync. You were saying things that everyone knew, but it wasn't in the media. You know, paedophile gangs was like a cult. Oh, that's not real. It was like UFOs or whatever. And what did you say? I might not be proven right, but I won't be proven wrong. Yeah, like it might not come to light, but you're not. You're
never proven wrong on this subject.
Yeah,
you're never proven wrong. The more they look into it, the more they go.
Everything's happened. Yeah,
it has happened. Yeah. And look, they're going on now, and you've got Elon Musk sort of jumping on board. I don't know what it's got to do with him, but if it gets him moving, good. But they're saying there needs to be a big government inquiry. They had an inquiry. Yeah. They had a comprehensive inquiry. Right, why do you want another one? The only one who benefits from this are lawyers that are making 450 quid an hour. Right, they're the only ones who benefit. Yeah. And the thing is, the key is in the word inquire. Inquiry, it will inquire. You need an investigation.
Right, yeah.
And if you had a national investigation with a national crime unit investigating these claims, not inquiring, investigating them, you're going to get people nicked.
Yeah.
So they don't need an inquiry, they need an investigation. Yeah. Will they have it? Of course they won't have it.
But the point is not to solve anything. It's just to show that we're doing something. This
and make a huge amount of money. And if you can drag it out, you drag it out. And the public gets what the public wants.
Yeah.
They want this. They want it. Nothing will come of it. And there's all these politicians now. They're going on. It needs to be. No. Right. We've had that. Yeah. They've all earned the money out of that. The victims have been given false hope. Nothing's really come. And it's one of them things. We've washed our hands. We've dealt with it. Now let's move on. Yeah. And they pigeonholed it, but it's coming out again. Right. Yeah.
It's bubbling under.
And I tell you what, the Russell Brand stuff is going to kickstart this back in again. Yeah. I don't like the guy. I don't trust the guy, but he's innocent till proven guilty. But how do the victims feel when they see this, seeing him doing these public denials? His best bet, not that I want to do the guy any favours, keep your mouth shut. That would be the wisest thing anyone could do. Keep your mouth shut. Otherwise, I think the man protesteth too much here.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? And it's...
oh, God. Right, John, anything positive? So what was the last film you went to the cinema? Was it a long time ago?
No, I go a lot.
Oh, okay, good.
I go a lot. I went and I watched, last week I watched that film Presence.
Oh, right. Was that the one that's in the house?
The Ghost, absolute load of rubbish. I wish I never...
I hated it. It's not really a ghost film. It's a drama that should have been...
It's stupid. Yeah. It goes nowhere. It was really funny, right? Because I used to have a lot to do with the first wave of East Europeans that came over from Latvia and Lithuania, right? And they were a great laugh, And I remember sitting around some Lithuanians' house once, and they said, "Oh, there's a Russian film on, right? You've got to watch Russian films, right? Yeah. You must watch them. They're so unique." I went, "Okay, well, why are they unique?" They said they have no ending. They just finish, right? They have a beginning and a middle, and then they just stop. Right. And I thought, well, that's absolute bullshit. That doesn't go on. Anyway, watch this film, and it's really getting going. Next thing, the credits come up, and I went, "No, I told you, the Russian films are weird. They have no ending."
It's not like they run out of money.
No, they just stop. They just stop, honestly. It's like someone pulls up the brake and everyone gets out of the car. And then the credits come up, and I didn't believe it till I saw it.
Did you wait till the end of the credits thinking something was going to happen?
Yeah, and what next? So
the lights come on.
So I watched that. Okay. The one I did see that really made me laugh was, is it Dirty Little Letters?
Don't recognise that. Cinema?
Yeah, it was really funny. and it's a true story, and it's about a woman in Littlehampton, in the Victorian era, and she writes letters to people, but they're full of swearing and calling women lesbians and prostitutes and all that, and she's quite high up in society,
right? And
she's just sending these letters to everyone. Timothy Spall's in it, and but it's really funny.
Oh, okay.
That was probably the.
What are some of your favourite films that you've seen? Just give me a couple, like that. If I thought your favourite films, going back whenever. Dog Day Afternoon. I bet you like that.
Yeah, that's good. I'll tell you without a doubt. But Green Mile. I love.
Oh, you like that?
I love the Green Mile.
Yeah,
I love the Green Mile. Shawshank Redemption's a good film.
There's a theme here, John.
You know what I mean? But yeah, I know you can't get away.
Well, it could be jail, it could be redemption.
Yeah, but the Green Mile's brilliant. I like that one. I love watching them films come up. The British film. I love British film. There's a film called Dead Man's Shoes.
No, I haven't seen that one.
Oh, you got to watch that.
What year, decade?
It's probably going back 20 years, right, to the beginning of 2000s. It's got I can't remember his name now. Paddy Constantine on it, and Gary Stretch the boxer, isn't it? Yeah. But it's Dead Man's Shoes. It's brilliant.
What do you think of the film Scum?
For its day,
quite raw.
Raw. I mean, educationally, And when you see, this is what was happening back then. There were films that were based on raw truth.
Yeah. They weren't worried about offending people.
No, that was what it was, and that's how that system was back then. You know, it was. I do love a true story and all that, but I do love a good comedy as well at the same time.
Yeah,
I mean, even
you got to laugh.
Even that film Porridge, it just makes me laugh.
Right,
40 Towers, I love watching them. The old
when things were simple, it's just simple,
just funny, chaos and all that. But yeah, Dead Man's Shoes, without a doubt, one of the best. The other one I like is Sexy Beast. I like that one.
Oh, I didn't see that one. That's the gangster.
Yeah, right, that's
what's the famous
Ben Kingsley, isn't it? He plays
that's
John Logan. Yeah, and it's
who's the British actor and he's adored.
Ray Winston.
That's
I quite like that film. And
what do you think of the Snatch and Snake and Barrels?
They're all right, but there's a predictive element to it all, and funny enough, the is it Snatch? What's the other one? The two Lock, Stock,
and Two.
Yeah, the character Vinnie Jones plays, Big Chris.
Yeah,
that's based on my friend Chris Lambriano.
Oh, the debt collector.
Yeah, that's based on him.
Oh, right.
That's his. Of course, me and Chris have become good friends, And
is he still kicking, Chris Lambriano?
Yeah. He's 87 years old now.
Bloody hell.
And he's still doing good work. I was with him the other month, and we have a regular meet up with him, and he's a main part of my journey.
Yeah, nice. Yeah,
that chemistry of me working with him, one of the most notorious gangsters of his day, and what he's done. And another guy I do a lot with is a guy called Stephen French, who was classed as one of the UK's most dangerous men, very, very hard man in his day.
I remember you saying before, what's he doing?
Calls himself, he does a lot for the young kids, keeping them out of crime.
Right, yeah.
He calls himself the fighting preacher. He's a world champion fighter.
He's a
tough guy.
Yeah.
But I've just done a bit of work with him in Liverpool. He's invited me up there. I went up and did an interview with him. And just a nice guy to be around, But there's a past, but that's redemption for you.
Redemption,
That's what we got. The message is, don't give up. There is a way out of this. But they need to start looking at giving people the right therapy. They need to start realising that the anger is a trauma, and that trauma needs to be offloaded. Yes, we should lock people up when they do bad. Of course, you've got to have sanctions. Otherwise, you end up with a reckless society.
Yeah, it's not one or the other.
And it's dangerous then. But at the same time, realise the journey these people have gone on, and that's where they can use people like me to come in. And
I remember there was a simple saying, just somebody said, hurt people.
Hurt people.
It just comes to that. If you're hurt, they hurt people.
Hurt people.
Yeah.
And there's a cycle of abuse. You've got to break it.
Yeah.
And there's layers of trauma, and it's not just a case of deal with the trauma and move on. These things can come back.
Right, yeah.
And they can haunt them. There's a guy, he'd be really good for your shows, a guy called Anthony Roberts. He was a bank robber, and he used to dress up in a burqa. Him and his friend would get burqas.
Right, so it works.
And dress up as Muslim women, and then they'd rob a bank.
Quite clever.
Rob a bank, and he said, I'm glad we got caught. You end up getting away. He said, because the next job we was going to dress up as Hasidic Jews, so we're going to go through all the
race.
Then arrest.
Oh God,
that was their idea,
right?
But he does a lot trying to help people not go down the same path as him, because he comes from a lot of pain. There's a lot of pain from his childhood. Very, very intense stuff he went through, and every now and then you think he's doing well, and it kicks off, and this chaos occurs in his life, and he'll be the first to say it. But he gets totally blinded overpowered by it. He can't see anything other than this survival mode he goes in.
Just revert back to what
back, and that's where they need the right therapist to come in and say, look, it's going to cost a fortune to keep this lad in prison, and if we don't do it the right way, he's going to hurt someone. But there is a way of doing it, and and the people have to take ownership of what they've done first. You must do that. You can't just blame it on the social workers and blame it on society. You've got to take your ownership with it, and then realise where it comes from.
Well, that's why you need psychiatrists over psychologists. You know what I mean? You need someone that digs in.
But the other thing, like you've got like primary, secondary, and tertiary blame. The tertiary blame. Well, let's blame the police. The police are corrupt. Police are this. Let's blame them. Secondary blame. Well, we'll blame the social workers. Social workers took me out of my. But they never blame the primary blame where it's needed. Your dad abused you, and your mum did nothing. Blame them first. That's where it started. Well, my mum did her best. Well, she obviously didn't do enough, and your dad, how is that love if he's done that? So once you realise that that's a primary blame, then you can start unpicking it, and then realising the social workers were only reacting to a problem that your parents created. Their parents probably were reacting because they've come from shocking abuse. And then the police did what the police did, and then of course they go into the care homes and they get abused there. Well, that's another layer. Then that's.
I remember Denzel Washington did an interview, got in trouble for it because he said some kid, I think it was 13-year-old, got done and they were blaming the police for something, and he said, never mind the 13-year-old. He said, where was the mother when he was 5?
Of course.
Like, that's what I want to know. Never mind like telling me what happened when he was 13. Where was he then? What was going on then before the police showed up? That's where the blame is.
There's a brilliant news clipping, and it was during the last riots in Tottenham. And there's an old Jamaican woman standing in the street, and she's going up to the lads and she's letting them have it. Why are you doing this to your own community? Why? And she's, I'm saying, where's your mother? Why have they allowed this? And she's really giving it to them. And I just think, good. It needs to. It needs to be dealt with. We need to hit these issues. And like I said at the very beginning, you can't make an omelette without breaking eggs. I say things and people get upset. I don't care if I upset an adult. You've got shoulders. Deal with it. Right? Tough. I don't care. I don't like people hurting children. I might be strange in that. I don't care what adults do. Adults can stick things up each other and they can do whatever they want with each other. You can consent and you can say no. Kids can't. So get stuff. Don't come belly aching and grizzling to me if you're a grown person. I don't want to. You'll get no compassion from me. Don't hurt kids. It ends, and if you hurt kids, then you've got an enemy in me. Right. And this is what happened with the police. I didn't really care that people got beaten up. I wasn't interested, really. I didn't care that a drug dealer got his money nicked. I wasn't interested. So what? Big well, have they worked for that? Have they done an apprenticeship for that? It weren't my problem, right? And then all of a sudden, I interviewed a young kid once, and it broke my heart what had gone through. And I'm thinking, this is what I'm going to deal with, and I'm gonna wage war on those that have done it, and I'm going to hurt them, and I'm going to hurt them so bad they will never recover from what I do to them. But I am going to do it with a smile on my face and act like an idiot, because that's what I feel is my skill set. I'm not the big tough guy. I don't look like a big tough guy, but what I've got is going to totally disarm you and destroy you. And I did it to amazing effect, and that's what I like to impart now. That this is what we should be doing.
Well, Jon, thank you very much again. It's been another fountain of knowledge. So I'm really glad everything's happening with the book and all that. You had some health problems. Is that on the up? Or I don't know what you want to say, what you don't say.
No, I was. It's still not been sorted out. But I've been referred to a specialist. I was in a world of trouble about a year ago.
I'm saying.
There's been quite a few lifestyle changes I've had to make and all that, but slowly getting out of it. But it was a bit critical last time. And these are the things why I had to put things on hold.
Right, yeah, I remember you saying, yeah.
Everything else had to stop, and I had to reevaluate a lot of things.
Yeah.
But
I have to say, John, every time I see you, you don't age. You started off looking younger than you were, and you just haven't aged in the years I've known you. So I don't know what you're going up to. I thought it was the swimming. I thought it was the cold water swimming that you used to do.
That's brilliant.
So I think I may be doing it.
I've got to bring that back.
Yeah,
cold water
right,
swimming. That is just the most incredible. I went last month to do one, but that all sort of come to an end because I was going with my dog.
Yeah.
And my dog died. And that was like, like my pal.
Yeah.
And we were swimming together, and it was like, it was just a good thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, anyway, I went a couple of months ago. I thought, right, I'm going in the water, and it was so cold.
Yeah.
I thought, how did I do this?
Got to get used to it again.
And you have to.
Yeah.
And it's a mental thing. It's such a mental thing. And that's where
I mean, it's just mental. The body's fine. You're going to be all right. It's just
I went swimming last week in Sweden. It was really cold.
In the water?
In the water.
Oh, wow.
I was in shock. I was like, I can't breathe. But it was so nice. I couldn't stop laughing when I got out.
In big
it was so great.
I've got invited.
Right, we've got to end on this, so go on.
Yeah, I got invited last year to go to Poland for.
Oh, really?
Because they did actually break the ice and go in. And it worked out. I couldn't go, but I would like to go to a cold like Sweden or Iceland and actually do.
And you'll come back here and go, oh, what's this? Is nothing.
They've got cold.
Pushing ice cubes out the way.
It's cold, you know.
So. All right. Well, listen, John, it's fantastic to see you. We're trying to come up with some ways of getting you back on a more regular basis. Not just talking about the negative stuff, but obviously with everything you've got going on, especially with the book and things like that.
Yes.
I need to keep in contact with you about that. But there you go. So, fantastic seeing you. We're going to get you back on again and keep us posted about everything that's happening.
And the studio's lovely, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's a comfortable environment.
It's great. It's really good.
Yeah, we've got a lovely jubbly. Yeah. John, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. We will see you next week. Thank you to Cool Water for sponsoring the show. See you later.
Love me or hate me, God knows you made it when he laid his eyes on me. 여기 네 눈이 날 바라보는 눈빛이 이미 다 말해줘. No, I ain't gonna let anyone keep me down. No, no, you just gotta keep up 'cause I ain't gonna slow down. No, everyone just wanna get to know you. 이미 시작된 걸. How could you think I'm sweet? I'm sweet, so sweet. You got stung by honeybee. You just went to sleep. How could you think I'm sweet? I'm sweet, so sweet. 둘이 키스는 없을 거야. 아마도 그럴 거야. Lazy lover undercovers. 너 지금 이 느낌. Eating biscuits, sharing secrets. Now it's just you and me. No, I ain't gonna let anyone keep me down. No, no, you just gotta keep up 'cause I ain't gonna slow down. No, no, everyone just wanna get to know ya. 이미 시작된 걸.